thrilled today to have two guests from Aviatrix, who is a Britive customer and partner. Aviatrix is an innovator in cloud network security, and they're going to talk about some of their multi-cloud access challenges, zero standing privileges, and how they have looked at securing some of the generative AI workflows and their use of AI internally. They are really doing a lot of cutting edge product design and research internally. So very excited to hear perspectives from each of our two panelists. So I'll go ahead and introduce each of them, or let them introduce each of themselves in turn. But I am thrilled to have John Chin, who is the CISO of Aviatrix, and Faizan Mustafa, who is the VP of Global IT and AI, also with Aviatrix. So John, if you'd like to give a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure, thank you. Great to be here, first of all. So my name is John Chen. I'm the CISO for Aviatrix. I joined in September of last year. I'm responsible for the corporate security side as well as our product security. I've been in the cybersecurity industry for a long time. So before Aviatrix, I was at Zoom for 4 years, right when the pandemic started. So that was a fun time. And I was responsible for security architecture at Zoom. So the security of the Zoom client, our backend cloud infrastructure, as well as critical IT applications. And prior to Zoom, I spent 20 years at Cisco working on security products, as well as securing Cisco itself.
Oh, fantastic. So you know a thing or two about networking. All right, Faizan.
Hi, thanks a lot, Matt. My name is Faizan Mustafa. I'm the VP for Global IT and AI at Aviatrix. I've been here for a little over 4 years, looking after digital transformation and more recently AI projects. Before joining Aviatrix, I was at Toyota as a CIO, implementing SAP and some other cool new technologies in the manufacturing space. Before that, I spent some time at AT&T Communications and KPMG Bearing Point and banking industry as well, in various different roles, but mainly in the digital transformation space. Thanks a lot for inviting us, and glad to be here.
Absolutely. Very excited to talk to you both. And I'm Matt Wilson, Principal Product Manager with Britive, and I will be moderating our panel discussion today. So let's start with a little bit of background. So Aviatrix, obviously, is a cloud networking and security provider, has been multi-cloud for quite a while. What were some of Aviatrix's pain points and drivers that started you down this rethinking of your access control across your environments? So John, I'd like to start with you for a security perspective.
Sure. So Matt, as you said, Aviatrix is a multi-cloud company, right? So that our product helps our customers secure their multi-cloud environment and hybrid environment. So internally, we use our own product. We also have a very diverse environment in terms of, we have AWS, Azure, GCP. We have SaaS applications like Salesforce. We also have, custom developed IT applications that runs in the cloud as well as our on-prem environment. Right, so it's a fairly diverse environment for relatively small company, and there's many challenges in terms of securing this environment, and one of them is identity and access. So how do we sort of monitor, control, provision identity across those environments, and making sure it's consistent, making sure we have visibility and control.
Excellent. And can you talk a little bit about why a just-in-time or a ZSP, zero standing privileges platform like Britive was so important to you from a security perspective?
Sure, yeah. So I came in September last year, right? So we did a kind of a scan and evaluation of our identity profile, and we do notice that we have quite a bit of administrative credentials, right? That's long-lived. That sort of resides in different environments, and we wanted, in order to have better kind of control and provisioning over these accounts, we don't want these admin credentials to be long-lived, right? So what you really want is, for the work that's needed, have that escalated privilege for that period of time and then take it away afterwards. And especially, since we're a startup, it's a more dynamic environment, right? So we don't want to have to manually track all these different admin accounts. So definitely some sort of tooling to help us in this area was much needed.
Great. And then Faizan, how about from your perspective? So as an IT leader, when you are evaluating a new security solution like that, what were some of the considerations or potential concerns bringing in something like an access management into such a complex and fast-moving environment focused on innovation? As John said, you're a startup as well.
Yeah, sure, Matt. So Aviatrix is a cloud native company, and there has always been this culture of innovation and high speed of delivery. We believe in value innovation rather than technology innovation, which means that we want to bring in technology that actually benefits our core business objectives, instead of just bringing in technology for the sake of technology, right? And as such, we operate with a very high speed of delivery. We are multi-cloud with presence in Azure, GCP, and AWS, with sophisticated landscape of SaaS applications which are integrated. And with AI coming in, there is much more increased pressure on from the audit side, from the security side, to make sure that our data sources are secure from external threats. And so it seems to us that with this, in order to manage security for this kind of a sophisticated, highly meshed kind of environment where sources are connected between the clouds, between on-prem environments as well, uh, it is important to think about security in a different way. And that's when we started looking at zero trust. And if you look at all the recent day breaches, right? All the big companies who seems to have all the sophisticated security tools on the rack, but you realize that still the bad actors are able to penetrate their networks, and they're able to gain access to just one credential with elevated privileges, and move east west or laterally to gain access to other systems, and then exploit the data for their advantage. So it's almost like, like in supply chain, when we used to say that you are only as strong as the weakest link. In your infrastructure as well, you might have many different tools safeguarding your parameters, safeguarding your database application, but what one is small weakness, and the bad actors are able to exploit it. So that's when we started to look at zero trust, and that's when identity and access management and zero standing privileges became, it started to make a lot of sense uh, in our journey for towards zero trust.
Those are great insights. And before we jump a little forward, I think maybe it would be helpful to talk just a little bit at a high level about why the Britive platform was able to fit into such a dynamic environment like Aviatrix's. So Britive is a cloud native privileged access management platform, and it's really unique in that it was designed to be cloud first and cloud forward, and it directly integrates with these various cloud service providers, the infrastructure providers that you mentioned, as well as SaaS applications. But it can also handle things like traditional on-prem infrastructure or hybrid deployments. And that's because we take an API first approach. So we're not leveraging proxies, connectors, or things that get in the way, because we know it's all about speed. And it's not just speed once implemented, it's time to value, right? I think you would agree that the longer you take deploying a solution, the longer you're delaying having any of the benefits from both a security and an operational perspective. And the way that we've designed this as well, I think also was made it hopefully an easier decision on the Aviatrix side, because we can support both the human identity side as well as the non-human, and are extending that into what we're seeing emerging very quickly is that agentic AI side. And I know we're going to talk about a little bit of that in a minute, but having that unified policy model in a single place of control for all those identity types, I think is what really makes it a little bit easier to implement something like ZSP through our platform. So with that said, Faizan, I kind of want to dig into this one a little bit more on the zero standing privileges, the ZSP side. how has implementing ZSP with your teams and tool sets changed the way that they work with their cloud environments day to day?
Thanks, Matt. So, I have a very interesting recollection from my time at Toyota Manufacturing, where I was before joining Aviatrix, and we were implementing SAP. And I just wanted to share this story with you during the orientation when we were implementing SAP on the shop floor. We were taken to a manufacturing facility, and as soon as I enter the plant, I see the plant was stopped, and there was this music. It was a nursery rhyme music coming in from one of the areas of the plant. And I asked the guide, what is this music all about? So he mentioned to me that there is a system called andon, which is basically a cord or a string that anybody on the plant side can actually pull as soon as they notice any defect, right? And the workers are encouraged to pull the andon string as soon as they notice any defect, regardless of how much costly it is to stop the line. They're encouraged to make sure that the quality is there and the defects will not make it through to the other parts of the production line, because it's much easier and less costly to fix a defect as early as possible in the production process, right? So, and then other thing I noticed is the concept of just-in-time inventory management, right? So it was a very lean environment. Inventory was provided by suppliers only in that quantity which was required for that days of productions, no more, no less, right? And we used to say that inventory is a silent killer, because when you have excess inventory, the holding cost is higher, there's a risk of theft of the inventory, and if there are defects, then they penetrate into your entire supply chain without you getting a chance. So when we were looking at Aviatrix security posture, and sometimes it makes a lot of sense to draw parallels from one industry to the other. And I was thinking about my time at Toyota and learning about Endon and GIT. I noticed I could not help noticing that all of these digital assets that we have, whether it's API keys or tokens or passwords or standing privileges, they are similar to a digital inventory, right? So why we should be uh, provisioning them unless they are needed? So as Britive, approach us with this concept of just-in-time standing privileges, I immediately was able to connect at a personal level, because I had seen the value of managing things via GIT, right? So, and Brightif can be thought of a digital end-on card, right? Because as soon as you have something uh, undesirable in your environment, Brightif workflow can actually stop it if there is any overprivileged account trying to access something which is it is not required to do. So now, after implementing Brightif, we started small. We picked some mission critical applications with cloud accounts. So now any developer who wants to either access a GitHub repo or a cloud account, they first need to check out the relevant privilege. And once they have the access, they perform their action, and then that access is taken away from them. So there is no over provisioning of access unless they actually need it, which means that you're also minimizing the risk, similar to what we used to do in the manufacturing environment. So and developers can check out by themselves. They don't have to rely on any human to provide them access. They just initiate a request through Brightif application, and there's no need to raise a Jira ticket and have somebody give them an access that they need. So they are also happy, because it gives them freedom to operate quickly, and we are also happy because we don't have any outstanding privileges. It's just everything is just in time and ephemeral. So really glad on this aspect.
I love that analogy of kind of the idea of a defect getting downstream in your physical supply
Yeah,
chain is like, I guess it's like a static credential or a leaked password is almost sort of like a defect. We
yeah.
call it a vulnerability in the security side, but kind of getting into there. Oh, that's fantastic. John, did you have anything you'd like to add from a security perspective?
I think maybe just touch on what Failan said at the very end, right? Like the speed of delivery and support for development teams, right? So not slowing them down, but while also enforcing security policy. I think that's really important in our environment.
It is key. So let's move on a little bit to what I think at this point, if you don't know what this is, if you're not talking about it, you're not concerned, it's not in your environment, congratulations, you've managed to disconnect from the world for the last, I don't know, 2 years. Generative AI is something that I know that you're using, you're deploying, you're developing internally. I want to start, Faizan, we'll start with you again on this one. Can you share a little bit about how Aviatrix is using Gen AI internally for, your productivity, automation, product innovation, and as you kind of started using this, how you thought about identity and access differently compared to like a traditional, user accessing a system or like an application?
Yeah, sure. So when AI came in, especially Gen AI came in, it completely changed the way we used to look at technology, right? And as John said, the speed with which applications are being rolled out, the adoption rate of Gen AI. If you take an example, for Facebook, it took almost 6 years to reach to 1 million users. For Instagram, it was maybe 2 to 3 years. ChatGPT, in 2 months you had 1 million users, right? And people just started creating applications on top of these LLMs. Applications like AI wrappers, which takes advantage of the LLM insights and provides some value-add services to users. So similar to that, at Aviatrix also we started small with Gen AI and some RAG infrastructure to deploy applications which can provide useful insights to our business users. But pretty soon we realized that the challenge of managing security in AI workload is much greater than any of the traditional apps. And the main reason is that in order to be more productive, Gen AI solutions or agentic AI, especially now with the MCP protocol coming in, where LLMs are connected to many different data sources in a very abstract kind of a fashion. The challenge to safeguard the security of your data, make sure that your API keys and identities of your human as well as machines is secure is a real challenge on the security teams. I was going through the OWASP, which is the Open Web Application Security Project, a very credible source, and I was looking at the top 5 threats, AI threats, and one of the top 3 were prompt injection. So where attackers can actually come in and through very carefully crafted prompts, they can manipulate your LLMs into providing wrong answers. It could be poisoning, where if they have access to your data source, which is used to train your LLMs, they can poison that data source so that your answers are not reliable. And third was DDoS attack on your LLMs by sending in so many prompts that your entire system actually cease to exist or operate. But in all of these 3 or 5 types of threats that I saw, the common denominator was identity and access. Somebody was able to get access to the systems and was able to get the access to privileges, and then they are able to perform whatever they wanted to perform in order to achieve their objective. So, it made us sort of rethink even the zero trust, right? When we say the zero trust means trust but verify, I think now with AI we need to start saying never trust, always verify, and that also in the moment, right? So with Britive coming into the picture, we are embarking on the journey where we are going to verify each and everything. Privileges are going to be ephemeral. They are going to be provided when they are needed and taken away when they are not required. That's a new way of thinking that every leader in IT or security need to adapt, especially when they are thinking of implementing AI. Because you cannot trust and you always have to verify.
That's great. And I believe Aviatrix, you sort of have this challenge even more than organizations that are just bringing in generative AI tools from the outside, correct? You are actually developing some of your own models and creating your own agents. So I feel like your touch points and your security considerations are broader than even a lot of other organizations. Did I get that correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because there are two types of applications in the AI, right? One is applications like Copilot, right? Everybody can go in and get access to Microsoft Copilot. It's something which is available to everybody in the on the planet. So this is not something which is going to give competitive advantage to companies because you have it, your competitors have it, so it's a zero-sum game. But if the application that actually gives you competitive edge is creating your own applications utilizing LLMs and utilizing your own data sources, which are of course sensitive and they need to be safeguarded. So in order to develop those applications which give you a competitive edge, they need to be safeguarded with a higher level of security and protocols. So that's why having zero standing privileges become much more important because you are playing with your sensitive data.
That's a great point. So you are also having to consider potentially even internal human user access to some of these, like the training data sources and things like that go into the models. Is that also a concern or consideration where you're building as well? I'm just going to put words in your mouth a little bit, not slowing down what they're trying to accomplish. So it's sort of the guardrails at speed. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yeah. So I think the way to look at it is, security is actually something that allows our developers to be more work with more velocity, work with more speed, because they are able to not only demand access that they need in order to build those applications. At the same time, they have a peace of mind that these privileges are not being taken advantage of. So speed and security go hand in hand, but you need to have proper systems in place to ensure the balance that you need for a more optimum environment.
Great. John, let's get, I'd like to get your take on this too, but let's broaden it a little bit. So what are some of the security concerns, not just at Aviatrix use of AI, but these technologies used in general? So this is kind of the CISO's perspective of what's out there, what are you afraid of, what's new?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Lots of things keeps CISO up at night, right? For me, I think it's also different depending on the stage of your company, right? So Aviatrix is a late stage startup, so our product is critical to our company, which in terms of like product security, security of our flagship product, the newly released PaaS product, right? So product security is high on my list. Want to make sure that it's free of application security vulnerabilities, configuration issues. So that's one. On the corporate side, as Faisal mentioned, we're deploying Gen AI tools like Copilot into our environment and just securing our corporate environment overall. And I would say from that perspective, one of the things that I think CISO are constantly evaluating is like, what is my latest attack surface, right? What am I exposed to? And this doesn't have to be just from the networking side, but like identity, workload. So constantly sort of evaluating and understanding my attack surface and be able to prioritize my security efforts. And then making sure I have defense in depth. So different layers of defense. So starting from the very top, I would say related to Britive, right? What is my attack surface related to identity, right? In this hybrid environment, do I have overly permissioned service accounts? What are they doing? Are the access orphaned? And do I know about them, right? So having visibility into the identity account, making sure the policies I have are implemented in real time, right? And then if I move down my layer of security protection or security stack, so you can see like identity being on top, application workloads, so things like CNAP type of solution in the multi-cloud environment, all the way down to the networking layer, right? And that's where sort of Aviatrix fits in. So I spent a lot of time thinking about how do we deploy our own solution in our environment to protect our environment as well.
Excellent. Good. So I want to dig a little bit deeper too for the audience here on this one.
Yep.
What would you say is like the real need behind the need when it comes to securing some of these access, right? So that's kind of the top line, right? Don't let people who aren't supposed to get to data, they can't. But from a, I guess, like a business and an efficiency perspective and extending, what are some of those drivers behind doing this, I guess?
Yeah, so speed of execution is one, right? So we want to give teams the ability to move fast. So the thing we don't really want is them to file Jira tickets, wait for a security team to act on it, and then a couple of days later they get access and then they do what they need, right? So we want to make sure that security in general is tied into our, let's say, the development process, right? The development workflow, the DevOps pipeline. And we want to help the company innovate, right, while maintaining our security posture. So there's a lot of different environments where either our IT engineers or developers need to get into. Faisal mentioned a couple, like for example, the test environment, as well as our so test QA, as well as on the IT side, the IT application deployments. So we want to accelerate our progress, but maintaining secure access. And one of the key drivers there, going back to Gen AI, is to make sure that the different applications are segmented correctly, that we reduce our blast radius, right? And then also that only the right users get into these environments.
Great insight. Thank you, John. All right. Last one. I think this is a perfect group to have this conversation. Looking ahead, is network and identity convergence, is that coming? So do you see these in like a security model context? What might this look like in 2 to 3 years? And I know we've got things like ZTNA and network aware or identity aware proxies, things of that nature, but this feels like this is different. This is heading a little bit beyond that. So John, I want to start with you on this topic of convergence.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think in general, if you look at a lot of the industry reports on things like ransomware, right, how to defend against it, you always see sort of a security technology stack that's recommended, right? So I mentioned this a little bit earlier. So starting from, let's say, identity, what you need to do there, like SSO, MFA, and then application workload protection, right? All the way down to the network layer, right? So in the network layer, egress security control, microsegmentation, encryption, right? All these things have to work together, let's say, to prevent a ransomware attack, right? So there's already kind of a convergence in terms of recommendation of what to do at each layer. Going forward, what I foresee is these different layers integrating and talking to each other. So for example, if you detect something at the application layer, that tool or agent might tell the network layer to take certain action. So for example, if there's a compromised workload, let's say even through a couple of years, some sort of AI agent in this environment might notice that and reconfigure the network layer to say, okay, let's quarantine this workload, right, into a private subnet and kind of cut it off from the rest of the environment. Or the agent might say, let's monitor this workload because we're not too sure if it's actually compromised. So let's collect some extra logs and send that to, let's say, our detection response tools, right? So I see definitely more integration and more visibility between these different layers, and actions can be taken at the various layers of your security stack based on the current whatever the attack is.
Great. Faizan, I'd like your perspective here too. So what do you see as maybe thinking about what John said in this potential converged future? What are some of the challenges and opportunities from an IT and an operational perspective that you would get from this kind of converged network identity world?
Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is that if you look at the industry today, most of the IT and security practitioners, they usually inherit a network that was built before they joined, right? So they inherit a network, and the network was built on not necessarily to counter the modern day threats, right? Especially with AI coming in, uh, the challenges have increased, and the notion of the perimeter as we used to know it in the on-prem days, right? We used to have a campus LAN, and there was this false perception that if you have a firewall, it will safeguard everything, and that's all what you need. But when people started moving to the cloud, and when your workload started to move into different directions, today we are living in a world where application in different VPCs or VNets can be connected to any other data sources, or you might have API calls coming in from an LLM in one cloud to the data sources in the other cloud. You might have inference workloads at the edge as well. So it's a very complex mesh. And in order to protect this kind of a environment, you need to rethink your strategy, and instead of security, think of security as a bolt-on. We must start to think him as a built-in feature, right? And that's why I feel that uh, this is not a trend. This convergence of network and identity is not a trend. It's a necessity. That's the only way you can safeguard your data and your intellectual property, because yes, we all know that perimeter may not be the same as it used to be in the early days, but still the concepts of computer science and physics are still the same, right? Data packets are still the same. They still travel through. They still need to be routed to a destination. So as long as you are able to create this symbiotic relationship between identity and network, so think of a world where, let's say, your AI agent needs to run a diagnostic on a VPC, right? And it first needs to check out a permission that will allow it to run that operation on a VPC. It's not something which is going to be given to a non-human identity, as we call it, right? We need to treat non-human identities as similar to humans, right? It has to be subjected to the same level of rigor. So once that agent is able to check out the permission required to run a diagnostic, then it communicates, as John was saying, to the other layer, which allows the route to be open and send the traffic to the destination. So we have to rethink our strategy in this modern world. And sometimes I believe that there is this sunk cost fallacy where IT practitioners sometimes feel that since we have invested so much in that architecture, we don't want to move. But that's something which is really critical, that unless and until you're willing to rethink your overall architecture in the light of different threats coming in, you won't be able to survive this onslaught of bad actor breaches coming in. And bad actors, unfortunately, are pretty smart in identifying the weakest link in your infrastructure, and they are very quick to exploit it. So it's up to the practitioners to understand the sensitivities and make sure that from the identity perspective, there is only just-in-time privileges, and that too ephemeral. As I said earlier, we have to go away from trust but verify to never trust, always verify, and that too in the moment. That's something which can severely reduce the blast radius of any impact.
Excellent. Excellent insights, gentlemen. And I think with that, we're going to start to wrap it up here. I want to say a huge thank you to John and Faizan from Aviatrix. The insights and the information about what you're doing is incredibly helpful, and I think the audience hopefully has some good takeaways, hopefully even more action items. But yeah, just to wrap up here, so Aviatrix, again, cloud security and networking innovators and experts that have chosen Britive to help them manage their identity and access intelligently across their clouds, their teams, and increasingly some of their AI-driven workflows and tools. And as you heard, the future of secure infrastructure really lies at this intersection of identity, network awareness, and most importantly, needs to be driven by automation, because the size, scale, the speed with which things are running is just going to increase, not decrease. So I'd like to invite anyone to also connect with Britive or Aviatrix if you'd like a deeper dive on securing your multi-cloud or Gen AI use cases, as well as any of your cloud networking or security needs. Again, thank you everybody for joining us today. And Faizan, John, again, a huge thank you for sharing your time and your insights. If you'd like to find out a little bit more information, we have some links available, and feel free to please connect with any of us on LinkedIn, and we will be sharing our slides with our viewers shortly. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting us.